We go way downstream. And that's for any business. You got to go downstream to the point of how they first found out about you to figure out how to do more of that.
This video is brought to you by Flipster, the nation's largest property database, including houses on the MLS and off-market leads, like pre-foreclosures and vacant homes. To find your next wholesale or fix and flip deal, start your free trial today at joinflipster.com.
Bill Allen, thank you for being here on the channel. Excited for this interview and to talk about flipping real estate. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's been really amazing for me to get to know you, Bill. Super excited to come to your event coming up. We're going to talk about that, later in the interview. To actually get to spend time, physically with you, not just on the phone or on Zoom or whatever, but to really learn from you and learn about your business. And I'm just so thrilled to be connected to someone at such a high level as you are. We were introduced by a mutual friend who has tremendous respect for you. He only introduces me to people that he think are super high caliber. And so for the past, few weeks or months, it's been great to get to know you.
Yeah, I totally agree. And in fact, when I kind of reached out to Steve, our mutual friend, I was like, can you give me a couple people that share very similar values and characteristics as me? And just getting to know you over the last couple months, it's obvious, especially in talking more in depth about your background and your history. It's really amazing to see that there's really great people in the coaching industry in real estate.
Yeah, well, thank you for doing that. On the channel here, Bill, I try really hard to give super valuable, actionable tips and strategies and content that people can apply. They can implement it right away in their business. And one thing that you do really well, and this is something I've learned from you, is you are like a master at data. And I want to talk a little bit about that for the next 10 minutes or so. I want to ask you what you mean. What does that even mean, data and metrics and kind of this, you call yourself a nerd about the data. But we have houses. We're looking for motivated sellers. We're looking for distressed properties. Our goal is to help that seller out of that bad situation, solve their problem with a quick, convenient offer, right? And then get good at that process so that we can either wholesale those properties. If you like to fix and flip like I do, like you do, you can flip them. But that process of understanding the metrics, the science, I guess, of the business is something that I think is so undervalued in this industry. And it's something that you've just nerded out on. So first, talk a little bit about why is data so critical and what does that mean? And why is that so critical to someone's success in this business?
Yeah, so I think in the beginning, people just kind of throw stuff at the wall and hope some things stick, and they work, right? I'm going to work harder, and you don't really know what's working and not working unless you're actually tracking these things. So I'll basically just put myself. I'll kind of tell my story real quick. When I got started, I was like just sending letters and then postcards, and I was watching lots of different things, and everybody was saying, like, I was reading books, listening to podcasts. I wouldn't spend any money on coaching at all. It's super cheap. But I was just kind of like throwing stuff at the wall, and nothing was really working that well. I'd get some phone calls or I'd get some things, but I didn't know what to repeat, right? And so as I started seeing a little bit of success, everybody said KPIs, like key performance indicators, track your KPIs. And I was like, I don't have time to track my KPIs. I'm out there hustling, trying to get some deals done. And so what I figured out in my business, I use like air quotes because it was really like me in the beginning, is if I just knew one number in the beginning, then I could scale that. And so I was spending money on marketing. And so as I started to get some success and do some deals, and I would say in the beginning, like tracking everything and getting all your systems set up, your CRM, all these things is not that important in the beginning. Like the important stuff in the beginning is to make some money, like go do some deals and see what works and learn a couple things, try some things and mess up. But what I did was I took, for every dollar I spent, this is on marketing, this is how much money I was making on the back end. And so I remember it was like 15 to 1 at the beginning of my direct mail campaigns. So this was in like 2014, 2015. Okay. So these numbers have changed significantly.
15 to 1 mean what? 15 to 1?
Every dollar I spent, I would make $15 on the back end.
Okay.
So like if I spent $1,000 in marketing, I was getting $15,000 in revenue to come in.
And these were wholesale deals, right?
These were primarily all wholesale deals. So I would throw a flip in there. So the first year, for context, I did 67 transactions. 12 of those were wholesale or flips. 12 were flips, and 55 wholesale deals. And that was in about 8 months.
$1 you spent in marketing, you were making $15 in revenue. Okay.
Yep. And so then I watched that. I watched that for like 2 years, and I was like, I'm scaling a business. I don't have time to track all the numbers and data at that time. And everybody's telling me you've got to know your KPIs. I was like, you know what? I do, but when this number gets to the point where I'm starting to get worried, because I didn't have a lot of operational costs. Where you get eaten up is when you have staffing, manpower, overhead, you got softwares, all these other things, not just marketing, right? So now we spend probably like 3 times our marketing costs on all the other parts of the business. So when I scaled up to like $1 million payroll, that's when I had to start really tracking everything really close to make sure I was making money. I think ultimately the way that a lot of these businesses fail in real estate, and really any entrepreneur, I'm in groups with all kinds of different businesses. They don't know their financials. Like they just don't know the finances. They don't watch that. They're making money, but they're not sure if they're making money, or they're not making money and they think that they're making money, which is even more dangerous. But all of that, like how you feel as the owner, controls your actions on the back end. So if you feel like you're making a ton of money, but you're not, you're in big trouble. And if you feel like you're not making money, but you really are making a lot of money, and I see that in flippers when they're flipping 1 house a month and then they go to 2 houses a month. So they take all their profits and they put it in growth of their business, and they have a ton of equity in the company, but they're not pulling it out and paying themselves. So they feel like they're not making money. So they make poor decisions. So both of those are dangerous. Now, I looked at that when I got to 7 to 1, I was making $7 for every dollar I spent. And it started to kind of squeeze. That's when I added another marketing channel. I added pay-per-click at the time. It was direct mail, then I added pay-per-click. And this is not a lot of people were doing pay-per-click like they are now in 2016. And so I was one of the first people in Pensacola to go do pay-per-click. And then I was making $15 for every dollar I spent on pay-per-click and $7 for every dollar I spent on direct mail. And so I just kind of tracked that for a while. And then I started watching all the other numbers.
And you tracked it, Bill, per marketing method, because
yes,
you got to know which. So at first it was just the one direct mail, and then when you added PPC, that's a whole nother KPI, because you got to separate the two now. You can't just lump everything in. Otherwise, you might be losing over here and winning over there, and you don't know.
Exactly. And I got a pro tip for you on that I didn't realize until after the fact. So I was making $7 for every dollar I spent on mail, and I was making 15 to 1 on pay-per-click. And so what I said, hey, I got a good idea. I'm not making as much money on mail. Let's take some of that money and let's put it into pay-per-click, and we'll stop sending as much mail. So what happened was I did that for a month, and my revenue started really dropping, and my leads started dropping. I was like, what's happening? Like, why is this happening? It makes no sense. And so what was going on is my direct mail pieces had my company logo and name on it. I always started branding my stuff because I wanted to be the guy who sends you a card every single month. So when you're like, this guy will not leave me alone, when it's time to sell, who are you going to sell your house to? The guy who has enough money to send you a card every single month, or the random person that just showed up in the mailbox for the first time? That was my theory. And so what was happening is people were sitting down. I didn't know this at the time, but I know it now, looking back and looking at the data. They were Googling my company, and they were clicking on the ad, the pay-per-click ad, and filling out the form there. But without the postcard, they didn't know what to Google, so they weren't going to my pay-per-click ad. And so my postcards were artificially inflating my Google revenue. And so what we started doing was we started asking people. I was like, we got to, it just dropped. So I had this theory that might be the case. Started sending more mail. It spiked again. I said, we need to track every single transaction at the closing table. So just because it comes in on Google ad, we can't assume that that's where the lead came from. We have to ask them. Every single person in my company, lead intake, acquisitions, transaction coordinator, me if I'm sitting at a table with somebody, how did you hear about us? And we got to dig deep. When they're like, oh, I Googled you. Oh, how'd you know how to Google us? Oh, well, I got a postcard. Like usually it's like we go way downstream. And that's for any business. You got to go downstream to the point of how they first found out about you to figure out how to do more of that. And so a lot of the people that I saw in doing marketing it's a zeros and ones game. So they'll have like 15 different marketing channels and they will never go deep on one to master it. So my advice to everybody if you're marketing is every marketing channel works, by the way, every single one. Text message, cold calling, networking with realtors, pay-per-click, Facebook marketing, texting, ringless voicemail, direct mail, it all works. But you got to master it and you got to go deep in it and just kind of own it and look at the numbers and dial it in and be really good at it. Yeah, if I was getting started today, which I am actually, we're doing something really cool where I'm going back like almost like undercover billionaire style, and I'm jumping back in. Frankly, I'm watching your YouTube videos and stuff and seeing what people are interested in. They're not interested in me telling them what to do. They're interested in me doing it and watching it and me showing them while I'm doing it. So like I'm going to go do this, and if I'm getting started, I'm looking at a really tight like farm area that I can just get my first deal in. My whole goal is like, how quick can I get that first deal? And I'm going to master an area. I'm even thinking like guerrilla warfare, where like I go to the liquor stores and I go to the pawn shops and the kind of people that live in distress. And I'm just like, hey, I'm looking for a deal. If you know anybody in houses, I'll pay you. I'm looking for this, like combined with a direct mail channel, right? Because I know direct mail really well. So that's where I'm going to start. But if you're really good at Google ads or Facebook ads, start there. Or if you are really good at, like you really are good at phone sales, like I hate talking on the phone. That's why I do direct mail. Like I hate it. And then I'm going to have to answer the phone a little bit. Like if I really hated direct mail, I didn't have a lot of time, but I had some money, I would do pay-per-click. Because those leads are looking for me. I'm not looking for them. So I have less leads, but I have to be on it really fast. So there's a guy I knew that was doing a couple million a year and in San Francisco, and all he did was pay-per-click. That's it. Just spent like $30,000 a month on pay-per-click.
Well, yeah, the thing that people have to understand is direct mail. You may be catching people early on in their distress cycle, right? Their motivation. Whereas pay-per-click, they're inbounding and they're usually very distressed, very urgent. They got to close next week, kind of thing. And so it's like that. PPC is like the steroid shot to your business, right? Because it's usually immediate closings, not always, but usually. So it's nice. And then your direct mail, you're going to be in a follow-up sequence, and it's the long game, right? You're resending again. You're catching people on. They're not ready for 6 more months, but you followed up, and now they sell. It's good to have a mix. Like it's really good to have the slow drip and the fast close.
I agree. Those two are really great combos. So just like you said, if I was going to kind of start adding on a marketing channel, I would probably try to add on something that was more inbound as opposed to outbound. Because if I'm going out and they're both long tail investments, you don't see it for 3 to 6. It took me 4.5 months to get my first deal with direct mail. 4.5 months. Most people quit after 2 or 3. And that's what I see is it's a zeros and ones game. So they don't know what's working and what's not working because they're constantly turning off and turning on channels of marketing. And so I would say if I was going to do anything, I would pick 1 or 2 instead of picking like 10 or 12 to just like here's $300 here and $300 here and $500 here. And I've seen a lot of people do that. And when I look at that, I look at their spreadsheets. I can't make heads and tails about what's going on. The problem with pay-per-click is it's really hard to like scale it big. And I think with direct mail, you can scale it pretty big, which is why my business scaled as fast as it did because I mastered a channel.
We do both as well. And PPC, every time we get to a place where we feel really good about our metrics and then we scale, our cost goes up. And it's so tricky, to do that. So you're right. It's a game that you have to really learn well. But I love your advice. Your advice is go deep on one leg, like master it. So many people, they watch a YouTube video about direct mail and they're, I'm going to do direct mail. And they send out a bunch of mail pieces and then they off to this and they're off to that. And they never really learn how to do any one thing well. I like to look at it like deep sea fishing. You want to have multiple lines in the water. That's amazing. But really figure out how to catch the fish with the first line, get the right bait, the right spot, right? Figure that out really well, measure it, track and test and track. And then when you feel like you've got that marketing leg dialed in, now go add the next one and the next one and the next one. Over time, you'll have a mix. Maybe you end up landing on 2 or 3 that you really love, but you're gonna have a pipeline now and lead flow, and that's the key.
Yeah, it's a game of numbers at that point, because once you get to a point where you know your cost of acquisitions, like you've done enough in that channel, then you know what you need to spend to get the next amount. Like it really is just science at that point. Like if it costs me $4,000 to get a deal, then I know that I need to spend $12,000 to get 3.
Most people don't measure. It's interesting, Bill, you said that because I was just at a live event and I was on a panel and this person stands up and they asked me a question. And it was about their marketing. And I asked them a couple simple questions. What's your lead? What's your deal per lead and your contract per And I started asking them some basic metrics, and they were like, we don't know. And I'm like, man, you got to stop right where you're at, and you got to go get your metrics. Like, I don't even know how to help you when you don't know your metrics. Like, you've got to spend some time right now. And they're doing deals. They're doing deals every month, and they don't know their metrics, right? They don't know where they're spending their money, what's working, what's not working. They just know that they're doing deals.
And that's the thing. That's where it can get dangerous. But I will say, like, in the beginning, just one number. Like, if I know that I spend X and I make Y, that was it for me for a while. And then I started to know my numbers. I feel a lot of people that in the beginning, they're like you're really not tracking anything. Like, what you want to do, if I'm like this, I'm going to go start sending direct mail, right? I'm going to use my own money, my own cash, and I'm going to track every dollar that I spend. And so I'm going to know, okay, how I'm spending this. I'm going to see, like, if I get my first deal, usually it's luck. If I only had to spend $300, I got lucky in the early cycle. There's no possible way that I know that it's going to be $300 to keep kind of scaling that up, right? So I'm going to then say, okay, well, what did I do? And how can I put that money back in to kind of grow this thing a little bit faster? So don't beat yourself up but you have to know some of your numbers, and you have to look at the financial model of your business to say, a lot of people are just, like you said, they're just doing deals, and then they're taking that money and just putting it somewhere, or they're pulling it out and paying themselves without growing the company and actually thinking about it long term.
Love that. So I got a couple questions for you. One is, if you're not a data person, like you don't like the spreadsheets, you don't like the tracking, you don't like nerding out on that stuff, what would you recommend for someone as they're building their business? What do they do? Because neglecting it's not the right answer, right?
Yep.
So what is the right answer?
So at first, I would say, look and see that model. Like, can I afford to bring somebody in who's maybe an assistant and office manager and if I was hiring my first hire, maybe they're answering the phone, I would add that into the job. Like, I would want to find somebody who's good at, like, maybe bookkeeping or accounting, who can also be on the phone, and get somebody as my first kind of bolt on to me, and I would hire that person. Okay. The easy answer, if I can't afford to hire somebody, is like, in the beginning, you kind of have to suck it up and do things that you don't like to do.
Definitely.
Like, I had to answer the phone when I first started my company. Like, I hate talking on the phone. I hate it. Hate it. Like, when it rings, I want to throw it across the room and not answer it, especially if it's a number I don't know. But I just had to do that stuff. I had to get some reps in. So in the beginning, as much as I hate to say it, like, that's kind of the answer. But very quickly, I would recommend what you do is you figure out, what am I good at? What am I not good at? What do I love to do? What do I hate to do? And what moves the needle for the business, and figure out, how do I build a job description in the beginning for somebody that I can bring on, maybe for just a couple $100 a week. Maybe it's a VA that can go in and is really good at data and numbers and can go into your crazy spreadsheets that make no sense, or your systems, and can jump in and pull out some of those numbers for you that you can then make sense on. Because I don't like diving into a business right now and going to find all the numbers, but if you show me them all, I can see the matrix, basically. I can tell you, and that's what my COO is really great at. He's really great at taking a computer, going into the basement, basically, and for a half day can just pull out all the numbers inside of a company and then deliver it to me in a method that I can look at and go, oh man, I can see exactly how to shift this business model to make them a bunch more money.
That's great. Second question I had was, once you start to track your KPIs in your different marketing channels, are you reallocating funds into the stuff that's giving a bigger ROI? So are you rearranging your budgets and dumping the money into the stuff that's giving you better results?
Yeah. So on that question, I think it depends. So there's one thing. There's like a point of, like, market saturation with some things that I would test. So if I'm getting, like, an example would be pay-per-click. If I'm getting a 15-to-1 return like I was before, what I would say is, hey, let's increase our budget a bit. Like, I wouldn't triple it or double it. I would say, let's increase it a bit. Let's see what happens next month. And if we're still making 15-to-1, then let's ramp it up even more. And so I did this. I'll give an example. I did this with direct mail. Direct mail, I was sending postcards every 2 months. So I would send to one list 1 month, and then I'd send to another list the next month. So they would get six a year instead of 12. And so then I said, well, hey, if I'm making 7-to-1 on what I'm spending, if I make more than 3.5-to-1 and I start sending them every month, that's a huge win for me. So I had this theory that if I send it every month, I would get more deals and I'd make a bigger return. Because if I'm spending twice as much, so if I'm sending them more often and more frequently, my goal is I want to net more money on the back end than what I'm spending. So if I spend, it's okay if that return comes down a bit because I'm spending way more. So the multiplication is going way up. So the top line is growing and the bottom line. So I did a test on that. So what we ended up with was about 6 weeks. So I started doing 6-week cycles instead of 8, and it scaled the business and allowed the revenue to go up. So there's like a depth of where I have to work twice as hard and I have to spend twice as much to get the same amount of money out. When I hit that point, that's when I want to move on to another channel or another market. Like that's when we started going from Pensacola. We basically hit Pensacola. We were doing like 40 or 50% of the cash transactions in that city. And I was like, we have tapped this thing out. We need to go somewhere else because I can take that exact model and make a much bigger return in another city. And so I picked a lookalike city of Chattanooga in 2016 and we exploded there. And it was easier. Like it was so much easier to find deals because there was no competition.
I mean, the thing that everyone has to understand here is there's 3 variables, right? There's the market, right? That's going to change. Like what works in one county might not work as well in another county or whatever. So you got the market, you got the lead type. So what are you doing? Are you doing pre-foreclosure? Are you doing absentee? Now, if you're doing just direct mail and you're not, I don't know if you're doing like an equity list or whatever, but you have your lead type. So you got your market, your lead type, and then your marketing channel. And those 3 things all, working together are going to produce results. And mixing and matching might change things. And that's where just this idea of really testing, tracking, going slow on your budgets, getting data, gathering data. The more data you gather, the more you can make projections and you can make smart decisions because numbers never lie. The numbers are always going to trend. If you can gain a trend, like this is just like comping a house. If I have enough data, I can understand value, right? The more data I have, the better I can understand value because the market doesn't lie. The data doesn't lie. If you want the truth about what's working and not working in your business, understand your data and you'll know the answers.
Yep. And real quick on the back end of that, I like to let demand drive my front end supply. So like, I want to know who's going to buy this property, where the areas are. So if I'm going into a new place or I'm starting a business, I always look and see if I'm going to be wholesaling, where's the highest demand for wholesale properties? And if I'm going to be flipping, where's the highest demand for retail houses? And that's what I'll target on the front end. And I didn't understand that in the beginning. We make about 50% of our money in one zip code in Pensacola. So of all of Pensacola, about half of it's made in one area. That when I got started in this business, I said, I'll never go into that zip code because I didn't want to buy houses there. But it's very heavy landlord type houses. We make a ton of money there. And finally I broke down and we went in there and that's when things blew up because there's a ton of demand for wholesale properties there.
Yeah. So demand, the other one I would say would be time. And what I mean by time is as time goes on, markets shift. So like, for example, if we see a real big market slowdown, maybe there's an increase in pre-foreclosures. So now pre-foreclosures become a hot kind of thing. And so you can win bigger now there. Why? Maybe last month, not so much this month, yes. So time also can be a factor that will change the way you do things that you'll want. And that's why you want to look at the data frequently. The more frequently you're looking at not too close, you can't look at it daily because things change. But if you're looking at the data, I don't know how often you're adjusting on the data, but monthly is going to start to see some ups and downs and some trends. And maybe you see one of your things trending up and you're like, okay, that one seems like it's working really well right now. Let's put some more budget over there. Like that's kind of the idea, right? Where you're understanding your data and you're knowing how to spend your money in a really smart, logical way.
Yeah, and when you get to a point where you're growing, and then you can start testing new things. Like in the beginning, it was just like, I'm going to do what I know is going to work, and I'm going to be consistent with it. And then I can start testing some things in my laboratory. What I love to be connected with other business owners was some of the people that were making a lot of money, they could test some things in their laboratory. When it started working, they told us, and then I could try it. So in the beginning, I wasn't trying things out. So then I became a pretty big company, and inside of like our mastermind group and the things that we do, I started having to go do like some the R&D, right? And we had to kind of research and develop some different programs and systems. And I would lost a lot of money testing some things out, but they were for me. But then I could bring it back to the village and share.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Well, Bill, thank you for sharing these. Let's take a minute. I know we went over the time we had set aside for the interview. Thank you for your time today. But let's talk about Flip Hacking Live coming up here. If you're watching this video, when it airs as of this recording, this is just right around the corner. It's give us those dates. Tell us about it. Why is this something that somebody listening right now has got to be at? Stop as soon as this video is over. Go book your flight, and get to this event. I'm going to be there speaking. You've got 20 some speakers. It's 3 days. It's action packed. Honestly, no one puts on a better 3-day event on flipping than Bill Allen. You're going to be in a room of some of the best in the industry. And so I'm super excited about this. Tell people why they need to be at this and a little bit more about the details.
Yeah, so the event's called Flip Hacking Live. It's October 13th, 14th, and 15th in Orlando. I would say what I'm probably best in the world at is putting on like life-changing events. So this is our 7th year doing this event specifically. This is the only event that we have that's open to the public. Everything else is our paid mastermind, closed doors, but we do about 8 to 12 events a year, all around the country. And we do some outside the country. But this event is our biggest. We'll spend almost $1 million putting this event on for you guys. It's an immersive experience where you show up and like it will change your like Jerry talked about earlier, like the vision of your life. It will change the vision of your business and your life and really adjust that for you. The speakers give everything. It's not like we're going to hold back something. I talk to every single one of them and I say, look, I want you to present on this system and you have to give them everything. At the end, there's not something to buy after that to get the last 30%. I want you to be able to take 25 presentations and take them in your notebook and have 25 different systems that you can implement in your business when you go home. And it's great for families. It's great for kids. We've had kids there 6, 7 years old. It's an amazing culture, an amazing community. You won't hear bad language from stage. You will have great values there. It's really just an incredible life-changing event. I encourage everybody to go. If you're local, come over. If you're not local, take some time away from your business and plug in. You need to take time off of your business, off of your life to change what you're doing right now, work on it. And this is a great opportunity. There's a lot of networking. There's people there that are doing short-term rentals, landlords, flips, wholesalers, realtors there, just anybody who's interested in getting going in real estate investing or scaling their business.
Awesome. Yeah, especially right now with a slowdown coming in the marketplace right now, you need to be equipped with the best things that are working today so that you can just crush it in this business. And to me, it's the energy that's going to be there. Like, I'm so excited to be in a room with Bill Allen, in a room with some of these super high level people, and just be around that type of energy is life-changing. I can't wait to be a part of that. I'm bringing my family, a bunch of my kids, and we're gonna make a week out of it. I'm so excited to be part of the panel that you're doing. And so guys, come see me, come see Bill and everybody else that's going to be there. The link to register is in the description below. Bill has given me a discount coupon for you guys, just you, my followers and subscribers. It's $100 off to the event. The price for admission is really reasonable. Get yourself on a plane, book a hotel, come to Orlando, be a part of this event. Like Bill said, it is going to be life-changing. And I want to see you there. You guys really need to be at this. If you really want to take this business seriously and really build a successful business in real estate, this is going to be life-changing. So again, thank you, Bill. Thank you for putting this on. Thank you for spending so much money to make a life-changing event, here coming up in next month. And for everything that you shared today, I really appreciate it, guys. If you haven't, also I'll put Bill's information below to follow him on his YouTube channel and his other social media. Make sure you get in his world and start to learn about what he's doing, because there's so much value that he's providing to the community. And if you haven't, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on the next video.